We will talk today about measuring social exclusion. But before we rush into all interesting details with indexes, calculations, and so on, let's step back for a moment and think, what is social exclusion? Typically, we think about social exclusion as some people in hard situation, and we tend to go into group characteristics, right? So we think people who have no jobs are excluded. People who belong to certain ethnic or religious group could be excluded, and so on and so forth. That doesn't help a lot. Why? Because not everybody who have no job are excluded. Not every Roma in Slovakia are excluded. If you are poor Roma, you have no good job, you have some daily job, you could be well included in society, you could well participate into the life of community, you could get access to some social services. On the other hand, if you are a rich workaholic, you could be well excluded. Yes, you have money, but you are completely excluded from social lives, from social participations. You never have time to sit with friends, to say goodnight to your daughter, and so on and so forth. So what we did, we stepped back and look on different things related to social exclusion. One thing are individual characteristics that you could consider them as risks. Certain characteristics, your personal characteristics, which could put you in higher or lower risk situation. Clearly, if you have lower education, if you have no good job, risk of your exclusion could be higher. However, these individual characteristics does not automatically translate into social exclusion. It very much depends on societal drivers of social exclusion. That could be institutional and behavioral drivers. If you are unemployed, but your country have good working labor market system, support retraining program, probability of being completely excluded is much lower. On the other hand, if you're a disabled person and societal attitude is that people with disability should not belong to the general society, you have big troubles. All these things work together with specific local conditions. It very much depends where are you living, in small village, in small town, in capital. What kind of industry do you have? You have many companies which provide vibrant economic environment, or you have only one company which provide limited employment opportunity. What kind of environmental situation is here? What kind of education institution is here? And so on and so forth. And only combination of these three factors lead to social exclusion. And we understand social exclusion as combination of deprivation. So basically, if you have problem in one area, you are not automatically excluded. So we should look on multidimensional picture of our life. We should somehow compare different situation of people. So what if you have no good job, but somebody else have no incomes? What if somebody else have no education but have job? And so on and so forth. To do this, we constructed so-called social exclusion index. We look on three different areas of our lives. First is economic dimension. That's how we work, how we get money, how we sort out our living conditions. Second dimension is public services. Do you have access to such public services as education, healthcare, cultural services, or you have not? Third area is social networks and political and civic participation. Could you meet with your friends? Could you meet with your relatives? Could you interact with government organizations? Do you participate in societal life? So we constructed index which consists of these three areas. In each area we have 8 different indicators which show different situations. So let's look on the first example. This guy have problems in number of these areas. He have no job. He have some other problems. But overall, if you look, it's more green than red light in his situation, right? So he's not excluded because he didn't step over critical number of combining vulnerabilities, combining problems, right? So we consider people to be socially excluded only if they aggregate number of critical mass of problems in their life. So the next person, she aggregated more. She's in much worse situation than previous guy. And if you could see, she has whole economic block in red, with exception of a couple of indicators. However, she doesn't step over this exclusion barrier yet. She is very, very close to it, but she is not excluded. If you look on situation of next guy, he just stepped over this barrier. So he acquired critical mass of these vulnerabilities. He has problems all over economic exclusion, but in addition, he has exclusion from social services. He has exclusion from social networks. So he is clearly excluded. Next lady is in even worse situation. Basically, she is all red. She has no problem, only in number of indicators. So we considered people to be socially excluded only if they get critical mass of vulnerabilities, of problems. And as a critical mass, we considered 9 out of 24 indicators because we have 3 areas. We have 8 indicators in each area. And if we have 9 problems, it's for sure person have problems in 2 out of 3 dimensions. So on this slide, you see social exclusion index. And social exclusion index itself, it consists of 2 parts. First part is a head count. How many people fall below this critical mass of exclusions. Second is a depth of deprivation. How deeply they go into this exclusion, how many out of these 24 they acquired. So these charts show head count for 6 countries of our region which participated in the survey. As you see, each line shows number of people excluded if we take a certain critical limit. And this blue line, it shows exclusion under 9 critical, people who acquired 9 or more critical vulnerabilities. You could well ask why we should look on 9, maybe 8 or 10 will work as well. And this chart helps you to understand what will be the situation if you look on other number of vulnerabilities. For instance, as a second line, as a second critical level, we used 12 vulnerabilities for certain groups of population which fall into this very bad situation. So second, as I told, is depth of exclusion. And you could see the depth of exclusion is behaving in quite the same way. On the next slide, we see total social exclusion index, which combine together number of people excluded and the depth of their exclusion. So it shows the situation. And from this chart, we could see that, for instance, in Tajikistan, deprivation exclusion is much higher than in other countries if you take any critical limit, any critical line. Whenever you take 10 vulnerabilities or 9, situation in this country will be much worse than in other countries. However, this is not the stopping point where we would like to stop. But we would like to step out of these populistic things like flashing figures that 35 or 40% of people are excluded and look deeper into why people are excluded and what we could do for them. And this slide shows situation of young people in different circumstances. So if you are young, if you are not well educated, if you are living in a village with one employment, with one company who provide employment, you face highest risk of social exclusion. But what happens if we compare a situation of peers who are also living in villages with one company, however they got better education? Their situation will be better. But if we start looking on different things, For instance, on business environment, on situation of capitals, you could see that situation is improving. And for us, it was very important not just to measure social exclusion. For this, we constructed social exclusion index, which works well in situation of our region, but also to analyze how different drivers, personal characteristics, and local conditions contribute to this social exclusion.